welcome to Agency Growth Day. It's our second event of this kind, and it is aimed to empower agencies with knowledge and insights for your successful growth. First of all, let me quickly introduce myself. I am your host for today, Helena Kuzmovic, Product Marketing Manager at SEO Ranking, making sure every day that we deliver the best product experience for you and effectively address your challenges with our product features. And of course, today I will be excited to guide you through the hot topics in our agenda. But before we continue with the topics, I will quickly remind you that we are hosting this event due to SEO Ranking as SEO toolkit for agency and in-house professionals. We are proud to be recognized worldwide and get recognition by our users for the best performance and the tool set. So we know that we are moving in the right direction. And speaking about high standards, we are the specialized tool for every SEO task, and by every task I mean it. So we have a complete SEO toolkit with more than 30 tools inside to cover everything from keyword research or competitive research to deep backlink profile and more. Of course, we know how accurate data is important for you. That is why we rely on our AI-powered algorithms and unique data sets to provide you with the most accurate data possible. And team efficiency is a top priority for us. So we provide you with collaborative features for your teams to efficiently work together on your SEO tasks. SEO Ranking is trusted by more than 40,000 companies worldwide. So if you're not one of them yet, we're waiting for you. You will be in a good company. And just a quick reminder that we have a very cool plan for today. We will have 5 top industry experts who will cover 5 top and hot topics for you today, all around the insights to provide you with the best knowledge for agency growth. Before we start with our first session, I would like to remind you that the event is recorded and you will get all the materials necessary for you. So just feel free to relax and enjoy the event right now, and we will get you covered afterwards. And the first session is ChatGPT and SEO, enhancing content quality and relevance. And I'm happy to introduce our first speaker, Jonjo Rowlands, who is head of SEO at boxChilli Digital Marketing. Jonjo, welcome. Great having you today. Please introduce yourself and the stage is yours.
Hi, yeah, so my name is Jonjo. I am head of SEO at boxChilli Digital Marketing Agency. We look after clients all over the world, primarily in the UK. And we are primarily an SEO agency, but we are a full service agency and we look after PPC, etc., etc. I use ChatGPT every day, and it can be kind of a controversial topic, and there's lots of different ways and right ways and wrong ways to use it that we're going to go through today. And so if I share my screen now, I believe you can see that.
Yes, we can see it.
So here we are. So yes, like I say, my name is Jonjo. I'm going to be talking about ChatGPT and SEO with a focus on enhancing content quality and relevance. Tiny little bit about me. You don't want too much. I'm head of SEO at boxChilli, like I said, and I lead a team of account managers and SEOs, and we look after a wide range of clients in verticals across the UK and internationally. And we're talking about AI today, which can be something of a controversial subject, especially in SEO. So I want to start with a disclaimer. It's always been a divisive subject, and even more so since the Google update last month. A lot of the hot takes that you see on LinkedIn and YouTube have been pretty wild. So I want to start by telling you what this session is not going to be. I certainly don't have the 1 giga prompt to rule them all, or some bizarre magic way to publish 2,000 articles in 1 click, or indeed any of the other too good to be true clickbait hot takes that you may have seen over the last year or so. So what's the difference between how these guys are using AI and how we are going to use AI? Well, the key distinction for me is this, and we'll keep coming back to this. I don't want you to think of it as creating AI content. Instead, think of it as using AI as just one of the tools in your arsenal to help you create great content. And we're going to learn how to do that today. Why am I making this distinction, and why do we need to seriously think about this? Well, to understand it, I think we need to look at the last 12 months in the world of SEO. So when ChatGPT came on the scene, there were basically two tribes in the world of SEO. There were what I call the AI enthusiasts, and then there were the AI skeptics, with the extremes on one side creating entirely AI generated websites with automated content, and the extremes on the other side were avoiding AI altogether because they were saying it was against Google's guidelines. But the question is, who was more right? Well, in February 2023, Google published their updated guidance on AI generated content, and it goes into some detail, but the most important line is this: rewarding high quality content however it is produced. And this is a rare case of Google saying in no uncertain terms that AI does not go against its guidelines. It doesn't violate its policies. So it kind of seems like the AI enthusiasts were at least somewhat vindicated. And to be fair, the data kind of agreed. Sites that were entirely made up of AI generated content began to drive significant volumes of traffic. And everyone could see that the content was kind of questionable quality, but nonetheless, it was clearly working. And there was it was a pretty compelling argument that brands should just embrace this, or they would lose out. Then the March update happened, and these sites were suddenly being de-indexed overnight. But we know that AI isn't against the guidelines. So why did this happen? And of course, the answer should be pretty obvious. The sites that were hit were ignoring the high quality part of Google's guidelines. The sites initially ranked because Google took a while to catch up. And to be fair, every platform was scrambling because of how quickly AI grew. But eventually, catch up it did. And we're seeing the same reactions on all digital platforms. So Amazon, for example, are tackling AI material, and they've implemented restrictions on the authors and the upload process. And it asked whether AI tools were used in the creation of any of the content. The bad thing is it's very easy to game. And I know this because I have done it. This is my first self-published novel written entirely by ChatGPT. I haven't read a single word of it, and I'm sure it barely makes sense. So when you upload it and it asks whether you used AI to create the content, you just click no, and it goes straight through and nobody checks. And obviously, I've just done this to prove a point about how easy it is to churn out AI content. But I would argue that this is the dystopia that we're working towards if we don't start rehumanizing our content. And so obviously I've painted quite a negative view of AI content through these examples, but the fact is that there are countless examples of positive implementations of AI, and they are good for the creator, the SEO creator, and they are good for the intended audience as well. And those are the ones that we're interested in. So the important takeaway is that AI content is not inherently against Google's guidelines, but bad spammy content definitely is. So today we're going to learn how to ensure your AI content is good. I want to briefly go over how large language models work. And this will be a high level overview rather than an in-depth guide, but it's enough to give you kind of understanding of the strengths and weaknesses of ChatGPT, which is really useful to know. And I would encourage you to do some further reading on this subject because it's really interesting. So way before we get to any of the fun stuff, the AI tool needs to be trained, and large language models like ChatGPT are trained using a range of techniques that can broadly be described as machine learning and deep learning. There's a load of really interesting articles on the topic that you should go and read, but the basic idea is that the model is fed a vast amount of text from books, articles, websites, Reddit apparently, and basically a huge volume of text from ideally a wide range of sources. And during training, the model analyzes the text and it learns to predict the next word in a sentence. For example, if the sentence, the cat is on the, it learns that the words like mat or roof are likely follow-ups to that word. And there's a probability assigned to each possible follow-up word. So as the model trains and trains, it slowly starts to understand how words tend to fit together. But in order to form coherent sentences and paragraphs, it also learns more than this. So it learns grammar patterns and nuances of conversation, different writing styles, etc., etc. Now, important distinction is not memorizing any of the text that it's trained on. That is a common misconception. When people say ChatGPT is just respinning existing content, I'd say that's only really half true. But what's actually happening is it's understanding how words and ideas typically connect. And it does this in terms of probabilities. So when you ask a question or make a request, the model uses what it has learned about language and the world to generate a response, and it predicts what words should come next based on the input it receives from you and the probability of a specific word coming next in the sequence. So obviously, if you just chose the most likely word every time, all responses on a topic would basically be the same. So there's an extra part of it. It will sometimes choose a word that's lower down on the list, and how often it does this can be manipulated through something that's called the temperature parameter. So essentially, we can influence how eccentric the output should be by dictating how often the model should choose a word other than the most likely option, and how unlikely down it's allowed to go. So we know that ChatGPT can quickly generate text and code based on what it's been trained on. So if we ask for a paragraph on pretty much any topic, we're going to get it. But by definition, ChatGPT cannot innovate or invent anything new, or it can't be creative by most people's definition of the word. It can do, I would say, a fairly good impression of it, but nothing genuinely new is being created. And this generates kind of a problem for us SEOs, because we know that we have to, on our client accounts, we have to be creative. So how can we actually use AI's strengths without falling into the traps of using its weaknesses? And these are the general topics that I want to talk about in this section. And obviously this is a bit of a mess, so I wanted to find a way to better present the information to you today. And this is SEO after all. It's not really SEO without a forced acronym. So thinking along the lines of using ChatGPT for content creation, I eventually came up with this. And so I'm now going to teach you how to cheat using ChatGPT. The first topic I want to talk about is content research. Now, content research is a term that I'm trying to popularize as an alternative to keyword research, because I think it encourages like a more holistic and strategic mindset. So I think keyword research can sometimes cause people to look at individual keyword targets without considering basically how they fit into the wider strategy. So anyway, ChatGPT absolutely can help with content research, but not as a replacement or substitute for traditional keyword research tools. So by traditional keyword research, what I mean is using a tool like SEMrush or Ahrefs or anything like that to build a portfolio of individual target keywords. And I would say ChatGPT can do a fairly good impression of this. So if you ask it for a list of keywords, you will get something. But the important distinction is that there's no data that's backing that up. There's no data behind it. It's got no access to search volume, keyword intent, or anything that would help you as an SEO decide whether a keyword is actually worth targeting. But what ChatGPT does have a pretty good understanding of is topics and ideas and how they relate to each other. And I've got a pretty cool example of how you can use this. So this is a prompt that I created for ChatGPT to identify blog opportunities. And this is actually a simplified version of the prompt. And the full methodology will be shared later, so you don't bother writing this down. But what you do is you say, read this sitemap, and then you post in your own post sitemap. Group the URLs into content clusters, identify content gaps, and give some ideas of how to fill them. What this gives you is a visualization similar to this. And obviously you get it in text format. You don't get a visualization in graphic format. But the red circles are the broad content topics that your site covers, along with the individual posts that fit into that group. So it gives you a really nice visualization of where you are right now. But the really useful part is that it will then identify possible related topics that you currently don't cover, along with content ideas to plug those gaps. So instead of just getting it to churn out a random list of keywords, what you're getting is really relevant content ideas specific to your website. And then you can incorporate that into your content strategy. And a little bonus tool for you now. So this is a keyword research tool that I built with the help of ChatGPT, and it's a Google Chrome extension. And what it does is it looks at the people also ask questions for any given keyword. So you need to use it when you're on a SERP with PAA questions already in them. So it automatically clicks on those questions, which then generates more. And once it's done a few levels, it spits them out into a CSV document. So in a space of seconds, you go from having a seed keyword to having a long list of relevant long tail keywords that you can incorporate into your content strategy. And if anyone wants to try that one out, you can download it with the link on the screen. So I would say you absolutely can use ChatGPT as part of your content research and content ideation process, but just don't ask it to give you a list of keywords because it will be pretty much useless. I want to jump right down the list now to train your GPT. If you have a task that you use ChatGPT for repeatedly, it can be really useful to train a custom GPT specifically for the job. And it's really easy to do. So what you do is you go to on the left column, click explore and then create a GPT. And then you can go through and give it specific instructions to follow. And I don't have time to go through exactly how to do this now, but basically you just give it a list of instructions. So for example, you could feed it your brand guidelines, your company history, your tone of voice, all the information that you have. So later on down the line, if you ask it to create something like maybe some category description text, you already know that it's going to be on message and on brand. And here is one I created earlier. So this one is called Gappy, and he's trained specifically to do that task that we looked at earlier. So how to read a sitemap and suggest content gaps. So now all I need to do is open up Gappy, paste in a sitemap link, and it gives you the results formatted exactly how I need them to be. And if anyone wants to give this one a go, you use the link on the screen. It's free for anyone to use. So if there's a task that you're getting ChatGPT to do over and over again, consider training your own GPT to do it, and it will save you some time. We're going to jump up the list now and talk about accuracy. I only want to talk about this one pretty briefly because I think people are generally pretty aware, and some people are hyper aware, that ChatGPT does make mistakes. But I want to illustrate how easy it is still, even today, to get ChatGPT to hallucinate. So here's an example I asked from ChatGPT. I asked ChatGPT to write a short, engaging match report for England's World Cup win at France '98. And I'm sure most people will be aware the appropriate response would be to let me know that England did, in fact, not win the World Cup in 1998, but that's not what I got. Instead, I got a detailed and fairly convincing play-by-play of a World Cup win that, in fact, never happened. Nowhere in the response does it say anything about this being a fictional report or an alternate history or anything like that. And obviously, this is a silly example to prove the point, but it's not hard to imagine somebody just taking the ChatGPT response and publishing away. It's very easy to get it to hallucinate, and you need to double check everything that it gives out to you. This is another example that I found in the wild, and it's proof that humans make mistakes too. So this is a recipe blog, and I suspect that they were using ChatGPT because in the list of ingredients is the now infamous line, "As an AI language model, I don't have access to," etc., etc. So make sure you actually read what you publish. And then there's this site which sells yoga products, and this is a category page, and they've used a category description text which is quite clearly copied and pasted from ChatGPT because they also accidentally copied the regenerate response buttons. So just a friendly reminder, may seem like a no-brainer, but nonetheless, make sure you're checking your content for accuracy. We're going to move up the list now to elevate your prompt. So if you want a coherent response from ChatGPT about anything, the most important thing that you have influence over is the prompt. It's the only thing that you can actually put in before you get the output. And a tiny change to the prompt can lead to wildly different responses. And we can illustrate this actually with the France '98 prompt that I used before. So as we know, the prompt to write a short, engaging match report resulted in a fake report. But the exact same report, but one word different. So actually what I did was remove the word engaging, resulted in a response that England did not win the World Cup. So actually a far more accurate response. So interesting side note here, apparently it's the word engaging that gave ChatGPT license to hallucinate here. But the main point is that one word difference in the prompt and two wildly different responses and actually contradictory responses. So how do we write better prompts? Well, to start with, let's give ChatGPT a really simple task. Write a joke about SEO and AI. This is what it came up with. What did the AI say to the SEO expert when it successfully optimized a web page? Looks like it's time to celebrate with some well-optimized data processing. So it's not very good, is it? And so let's see what's happening here. What ChatGPT is doing is it's understanding like the format and the cadence of a joke, but it doesn't understand on any level the human element of what actually makes a joke funny. And it's important to remember that will actually always be the case. Because it is a robot at the end of the day. It's not understanding anything about what it's spitting out. But we can get closer to what we're looking for with a better prompt. And it is another acronym, I'm afraid. And this one is a really self-important acronym because I happen to have called this the Jonjo Method. So it goes like this. So the initial J stands for job. What I want you to do for every single prompt that you give to ChatGPT, I want you to give it a specific job or a role to give context for what it is that you're asking it to do. So, for example, you could say you are a sports writer or you are an SEO expert, whatever it might be. So give it a specific persona in order to understand the prompt that you're giving it, and you'll get a far more appropriate output. The O stands for outline, and this is where you just give a quick one-line overview of what it is that you want to achieve. Next, it's the needs or the details. This is where you dictate exactly what you need to see in the response. So, for example, the response should be around 1,000 words. Include a section on X and Y, whatever it might be, the target audience. I want you to be really, really specific and tell it exactly what you need to see. The next J stands for jargon, and this is where you give it kind of any specific information that it wouldn't otherwise already have access to. So, for example, you could give it any key industry terms that it wouldn't otherwise know. It could be primary research that you've already discovered. You can remember that you can actually feed it information that will use that in its response. And the final O stands for emissions. And this is where you tell ChatGPT exactly what you don't want to see. So, for example, don't write a section on this, avoid these specific words and phrases, etc., etc. So let's put this into practice and see if we can get a better joke out of ChatGPT. So job, you are a professional stand-up comedian. Outline, write a joke talking about SEO and AI. Needs, the joke should work as material for an observational comedy stand-up set, not for a joke book. Aim for 50 words and use the first person. Jargon, a lead away causes an audience to assume one thing, then defies their expectations. Use this format for your joke. And finally, omissions, don't use any swear words and avoid politics. This is what I got this time. So I used ChatGPT to optimize my website. It went well at first, but when it suggested keywords like robot uprising and cybernetic overlords, I started to panic. Now, I'm not obviously saying this is the best bit of stand-up material in the world ever, but there's definitely a joke in there somewhere. I can definitely think with the right delivery, it would vaguely work on stage. But the main thing is it's obviously far better than what we had in the original prompt, which was a joke that just didn't make sense. So use the Jonjo method to elevate your prompts, and I promise that you will definitely get better results. Human signals. So a curious thing happens when you start using ChatGPT more is that you start noticing ChatGPT more and more out in the wild. And I'm sure you've experienced this too. There's specific phrases and linguistic styles that ChatGPT seems to love. And when you start looking out for them, they stick out like a sore thumb. So every blog post seems to include the phrase, let's delve into or dive into or some combination of that. With ChatGPT, you don't read an article anymore. You embark on a journey of discovery. And generally, if I see another LinkedIn post that includes the phrase, in the ever-changing realm of, I think I will scream, in the ever-changing digital landscape, SEO is more important, etc., etc. If you want to sound human, you need to recognize these patterns and just disrupt them. Delete these phrases from the output every single time. So we're going to take a brief diversion now to look at language theory. And this is really interesting. And I do, again, encourage you to do some further reading on the topic. So I want to introduce you to this mustachioed hero. This is a Swiss linguist, Ferdinand de Saussure. Now, Saussure argued that there are two kinds of language, and he called the first one la langue, and this is the formal concept of language, and that's what you kind of, this is what you would learn in a school or find in a dictionary, and it's got specific rules and formalities. And the second is called la parole. And this is the speech that human beings actually use to communicate day by day. And it includes things like colloquialisms and informal discussion. This is what you might get in a, like when you're texting your friends or just talking with people. And what we've done with ChatGPT is that we've codified the first version of this. We've codified la langue really well. And so it can form coherent sentences. But what it doesn't do is keep up to date with la parole, because that evolves far too quickly for it. The way people actually communicate moves far too quickly for ChatGPT. So we result in a really formalized version of communications that technically makes sense, but isn't the way humans actually creatively communicate. And this is best put in the brilliant article that I've put on the screen here, which I really do encourage you to go and read, because it's fantastic article. But an important bit from it is this: no language model will be able to keep up with the pace of weird internet lingo and memes. I expect we'll lean into this, using neologisms, jargon, euphemistic emoji, unusual phrases, in-group dialects, and memes of the moment to help signal your humanity. And what this is saying is that in your output, to show that you are a human, you can use these specific words and phrases that just are far more informal and euphemistic to signal your humanity. So what we can take away from this is to humanize your AI generated content by integrating non-standard syntax signals that deviate from the formal patterns utilized by large language models. And I think we can all agree this is unnecessarily wordy. So alternatively, you can simply remember, write like a fucking human. It's not difficult. Here's an example. So I asked ChatGPT to give me a fact, and it gave me this. Honey never spoils. Archaeologists have found pots of honey in ancient Egyptian tombs that are over 3,000 years old and still edible. If I'm writing for an encyclopedia, that's probably fine as it is, but it's dry and boring, and humans don't communicate like this. So this is where you need to get stuck in and actually make some edits for yourself. So about 30 seconds of editing, and then we get this version. It wasn't difficult. I just added a few little specific words and phrases here and there that just signal the humanity. And you have to do this yourself. It's a far more readable version after doing this. Because ChatGPT is really bad at changing its tone of voice. So if you ask ChatGPT to rewrite the text in a sort of a more human form, informal tone, this is what you get. Check it out. Honey literally never goes bad. They found honey in ancient Egyptian tombs that thousands of years old and still totally edible. How cool is that? So it turns out that if you ask ChatGPT to sound like a human, it causes it to sound more robotic than ever. So just do this yourself. Next, I want to empower you to use the first person in your content. So don't be afraid of I when it's appropriate. Obviously, if you're writing for something really formal, like you're writing for the NHS website or something really formal style guide, this isn't going to be appropriate. But I would argue that it's definitely appropriate in a far wider range of articles than we're currently using it. So remember that we're writing all of our articles with the goal of demonstrating expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. And the best way to demonstrate expertise is, yes, to have really good information, but also to look at and sound like an expert. So a really important trust signal here is author blocks on the same topic. So everybody should be adding author blocks into their article pages wherever possible, because it tells the reader, and obviously Google, that this article was written by a real person. And they have specific real world expertise that qualifies them to write that article and have expertise on that topic. And ideally some form of social proof to kind of prove that this person actually exists and has that expertise. You may recognize here the famous BBC strapline, inform, educate, entertain. This is something, and it's a mindset that I want to bring into the world of SEO. So I've got this theory that years of keyword optimizing articles has kind of conditioned us to think that every word in an article needs to have a specific practical purpose. And I want to say that we can afford to add a bit of personality and color into our content. And I'm not sure that the word entertain is exactly right for our purposes. But what I am saying definitely is that the articles all need to be engaging. So I want you to approach every single piece of SEO content with the goal to inform, educate, and engage the reader. And I get this is obviously easier for some brands than others, but I have a real world example of the kind of thing that I mean. So this is an article that I was looking at on a client website, and it's an article about the differences between conservatories and orangeries. And it's in this article, it included the line here, the origins of orangeries, which is obviously a bit of a tongue twister. So I just added the phrase, say that 5 times fast. And it adds no new specific information to the article, but it draws the reader in and makes the article much more engaging. And it definitely sounds much more human. So returning to the EE80 guidelines, so I feel strongly enough about this that if I worked at Google, I would be filling the gap here with yet another additional E, which would stand for engagement, because I think it's a really important thing that we need to be doing that we're currently not doing as an industry. So add human signals into your content, and remember, you have to do this yourself. There are no shortcuts. So that is how to cheat using ChatGPT. I think the main takeaway is that you absolutely have to do it yourself. You can absolutely use ChatGPT to start the process, but you have to use your human expertise to add value to it. And one thing that we need to talk about now is addressing AI in our client communications. So we're going to talk about that now. I talk to clients every single day, and probably in the last year or so, AI has been a primary discussion point that comes up time and time again. And I get questions like this. Why am I paying you to create ChatGPT blog posts? It's kind of that version of the question. And sometimes it's like a bit of a joke, and sometimes it's a deadly serious accusation. I've been in a position where I've had to defend our processes. I think the first thing that I want to stress is that honesty is always the best policy here. Don't try and hide the fact that you're using AI if you are. But the most important message you need to get across is the same thing that I told you right at the beginning of this session. I don't want you to think of it as creating AI content. We are using AI as just one of the tools in our arsenal in order to create excellent content. And that's what the message that you need to give to our clients. So it's not something that we're just churning out AI articles. It's just a tool that we're using. And a really good analogy for this is a carpenter using power tools. So if you think of a table saw massively increasing efficiency and speed compared to a handsaw, but whatever tool you use, you still need a skilled carpenter if you want to create something good. And even with the best tools in the hands of a bad worker, will have disastrous consequences. Normally that's enough to get the point across, but on rare occasions I have been asked, oh, can't I just do it myself? If I can just put something into ChatGPT and get an answer, is that not, do I still need you? Do I still need to keep paying you? Which I think the most appropriate response to this question would be to show them this graph and say good luck. Because as we know that a really intelligent SEO can use AI as just one of the tools in our arsenal to create excellent content. But if you're just automating content and just spamming, then this is what's going to happen to your site. It's going to be de-indexed by Google and you're going to have a bad time. And that is me. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for the presentation. It was great. And thanks a lot for presenting the abbreviations. I'm not sure which one I like more, Cheat or Jonjo, but yeah, I will definitely remember both of them. So thanks very much for sharing. And now let's go to our Q&A session. I'm going to see what we have in chat. And meanwhile, if you have any questions, please drop them. We will be covering them in the next 10 minutes. So first one is from Josephine. How do you balance using AI to write content and still keep things sounding real and genuine?
So for me, this is where you have to get stuck in yourself. I would use, and so any article that I do still write now, I will use ChatGPT to give myself an outline. And then I think of it less as creating content, but more as building content now, actually. So what I do, I'll have the outline that sometimes will just be pure copied and pasted from ChatGPT, and then I'll think of it about how I can use my human expertise to build upon it. So something I said, obviously, in the presentation is using your specific expertise to just change the language to be more human. So there's obviously that. You can also ask ChatGPT to expand on certain points and phrases. And eventually what you do is you just start building out your article bit by bit and start thinking as an SEO and thinking keywords and user intent. And you have to get stuck in and actually change the words and phrases yourself.
Right. That's a great recommendation. Thanks a lot. Next one is from Homer, I guess. How can you train ChatGPT to really nail down industry-specific lingo and knowledge?
So this can be difficult. Sometimes it will be something that you have to do yourself, but this is when in the Jonjo method that I showed you, the second J is for jargon. So you can on occasion tell it, these are the specific words and phrases that I want you to use. And it will do a good job of using those. I have found occasions where no matter how hard you try, it just can't quite grasp what it is you're trying to do. So for example, the big one here in the UK, the English spelling of words with S's instead of Z's and things like that. It seems to have a really hard time. Even if you specifically ask it, I want you to write and spell things this way, it still can't do it. So there are occasions where it's just not going to be able to. It's just, I guess, not there yet. And you'll have to just go in and do it yourself. But I've had a great deal of success with creating custom GPTs that understand the specific phrases and things that you give it, any industry terms. And then it will use that as the basis of its knowledge for any new task that you give it.
Great. Lovely. Thank you very much for the reply. And then next one is a pretty broad one, but pretty important from Rupert. What kind of metrics do you look at to figure out if the AI generated content is actually working for SEO?
Well, I would treat it as any other piece of content, because really it should be any other piece of content. So any SEO metrics that you are currently using, obviously looking at Search Console, whatever sort of platform that you're using, obviously we use SE ranking to understand the keywords and things like that. Treats it like any other piece of content. It should be no different. If you're asking about understanding whether it sounds human or whether it looks like it's been written by an AI, you should be able to tell that by reading it. If you read it and you think that this looks like it was written by an AI, somebody else will think the same thing. And maybe you are too close to it and you need to give it to someone else in your team. Maybe there's you can ask a couple of people to read it and say, does this article tell you what you need it to? I think the main thing that I want to get across within any discussion about AI is that slide that I had earlier. AI content isn't necessarily bad. It's bad content that's bad. If you put a prompt into ChatGPT and it spits out an article and it is perfect, it couldn't be any better, then you don't need to edit it. It's just that the odds of that happening are vanishingly small. So you will always have to put some kind of human expertise into it. But really, I don't want you to think of it as AI content and human content. It's just using AI as a tool. It's a glorified spell checker in a way. It's just a tool that we have in our arsenal that can speed us up.
Yeah, great. I totally agree with you. It all depends on the goals of the content we have, and we can measure them accordingly. So makes perfect sense. Thank you. Another one is from Matt. First of all, thanks for the information that you shared. And then how does ChatGPT deal with understanding and optimizing content across different languages or regional dialects?
So this is something I don't have a great deal of expertise in, because obviously every article that I've written has always been in English. I know that it obviously does speak multiple languages, so obviously there's that. One thing I do know, it has the very first week that I logged into ChatGPT and started creating an account, I was basically playing with it and just doing silly tasks. So I remember one was write a nursery rhyme in the style of Morrissey, and silly things like that, and just playing with it. And one of them was asking it to write a poem about a specific subject using Jamaican patois in the style of Linton Kwesi Johnson, and it did a really good version of it. It looked exactly like it had been written in this kind of dub reggae poetry style, which was amazing. It kind of blew me away that it was able to do it. So I know that it definitely has the ability to speak in a kind of a niche sort of way, a manner of speaking with decent accuracy. So yeah, that's the limited experience that I've had. It's showed kind of promising outputs.
Got it. Thank you very much. And Jonjo, as you mentioned that, next time we invite you as a speaker, you start with that poem, definitely.
That's it.
Okay, next one is from Nicola. Can you tell us what are the downsides of learning too much on AI for creating content, especially in terms of SEO penalties, and how can we avoid those traps?
Yeah, so the downside is if you so the danger for me is when you automate everything and do everything sort of at too much scale. But really the main thing to think about is that this is actually no different from when we were just writing content ourselves. If we were just using programmatic methods to put out spammy content that actually didn't serve any actual purpose, that was already against Google's guidelines for creating content for the specific purposes of manipulating the SEO. It is always against Google's guidelines. And so now that we have the ability to do that very quickly and at scale, really the rules are no different. It's just the tools that we have are different now. My rule of thumb for this would be, if you can honestly, hand on heart, say that this piece of content is written for the end user and it matches searcher intent, then absolutely it's fine to go ahead and post it, and you should be in no risk of any dangers. If you are creating spammy content and just putting a prompt in and copying and pasting and putting it straight in, then that's probably against Google's guidelines. That's the main thing. So yeah, I don't want to dissuade people from using AI, even kind of at scale, if the content is genuinely matching user intent.
Yeah, makes total sense. Thank you very much. Great answer. Then we have also a question from Variational Singularity. Is there any way I can get ChatGPT to use keywords with a high search volume? I'm struggling to get it to use popular wording.
So the answer is yes, you can, but you have to do the research outside of ChatGPT. So what you do is you go into SE ranking and use the keywords research tool, and you use the other tools that are available, and build yourself a portfolio of specific target keywords and long tail keywords and everything that you want to use for your article. And then you give them to ChatGPT and say, use these specific words and phrases. I don't like thinking in specific keyword terms because I think it makes it too narrow. I want to be, and my teams, I want them to be thinking about specific topics rather than specific keywords. But the truth is, people still search using keywords, and keywords are still important. And so definitely think about adding in the keywords into your article that you've researched using proper keyword research tools, not ChatGPT. But the main thing that I want you to do when you're writing the articles is think about, does this broadly match searcher intent?
Right. Thanks a lot. And I think that would be our last question for today. Can you train ChatGPT instance once on industry jargon, key info, etc., and then it will remember all of it for any future sessions, or you need to retrain it every time?
Yeah, so the answer is yes, you can do this. This is training your own custom GPT. I think we covered in the presentation. You do need to have the premium, I think, pro version or a paid account for ChatGPT to do it. There probably is a way, but using the doing it behind the scenes. But it's I just have a normal account and create a custom GPT, give it that information, and then it can use it every time.
Thanks a lot. Now it's pretty clear, and I think there will be no issues for our visitors today to use it, right? Thanks a lot for sharing all of it. The comments are all kudos for you for the great insights. So thanks a lot for joining us.
No problem at all. Pleasure.